It says it's on yours. Mhm.
No, on this one.
On the M&E, and you are in the middle of the video.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for making the time to join this budget conversation. I know that it's not our typical time. We usually do Saturdays in the afternoon, but Madam Chair is very busy. There's so much going on. Plus, we both decided that it's good to talk about this right in the week of passing the budget yesterday. And so, for those that are joining on Facebook Live, please feel free to put in your comments and your questions. Again, thank you for joining, and I appreciate it. Madam Chair, congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
If I could stand, I should give you an ovation.
Thank you.
I know it's not easy, so I do appreciate you making the time to come while you should be sleeping, like after such a big night last night. So I do appreciate you making the time to come. So for starters, I wanted you to walk us through the budget process, because we may have new people that are listening for the first time. We have some young individuals here. So what does the budget process look like from start to finish? If you can just give us a brief overview of that process.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So basically, I like to say that the budget process is with the mayor's office from July 1 to May 1, and then it goes to be with the Metro Council from May 1 until June 30th. So as soon as the budget passes, our finance team, HR is already, starts to work on the next pay plan. The finance team starts working on our next year's budget. So it is a year-round process. Once you get a little bit closer to January, the finance department is working with departments to help determine what they need for the next year's budget. They're constantly monitoring. We get, as you know, we get those bar reports. So we get these monthly reports so that we can know how departments are actually spending, if they're on track with their budget, if a department needs support in making their budgetary goals. Like if a department is over, finance will work with them to make sure that they get back under. So they look at what does that department need for that upcoming year. Then they will work with the mayor's office to determine the mayor's proposed budget. And in that, it is holistically looking at, Metro Nashville Public Schools. It's looking at our debt services. It's looking at all of our Metro departments. So the mayor's office and finance, they work together. And on May 1, every year per charter, the mayor does the state of Metro. And in the state of Metro, the mayor announces his vision for the budget. So that will include the tax rate, any increases to departments, all of those things are provided at that state of Metro. And from there, that's when, our process really kicks in. As budget chair, my process starts way before then, but that's more when the rest of the body becomes a little more engaged. Okay. Some years ago, we started this pre-comment budget hearing where in February we would invite the public to come out for 2 hours and they could come and talk about what they want to see in the budget. We already have a public hearing on the budget, which is the second reading of the budget, which is always the first meeting in June. But we were so far into the process, we wanted to hear about what the community wanted a little bit earlier. So starting in February, that is when, and actually, I started about January setting out the calendar for the budget year. And then in February, we have that pre-budget comment period where the community comes out and talks about what they would like to see in the budget and how they would like their tax dollars to be spent. Then I work on questionnaires that go to the various departments, and in those questionnaires, they can't go out until the mayor's budget is released because the department doesn't technically know what they're getting in their budget until the mayor releases his budget. But then that questionnaire will say, are you able to provide your services and meet your mission with the budget that the mayor has provided? And if not, like what additional things do you need? Like what are some things that you just have to have that the mayor didn't fund? What happens if you get a reduction? Are we looking at like what would the impact be on services and constituents? And we also ask about like vacancies and how are they recruiting to try to fill vacancies? Just various questions that we're asking those departments. Those departments then send those questionnaires back to us, and that's available for anyone in the public to view, but primarily it's to the Budget and Finance Committee members and to myself as chair, but any council member can view it, and anyone and the public can view it. From there, we have departmental hearings, so we bring in the departments. Historically, we had every department to come in, but we have so many departments within Metro. The departments were getting about 5 minutes, and it was like a dog and pony show for 5 minutes, and it wasn't any meaningful action happening. So we felt that it wasn't quite meaningful to do it that way. So some years back, we changed the way that we do it. So now we primarily hear from the bigger departments. So think like Sheriff's Department, MNPS, the schools, the libraries, the departments with bigger budgets, but also some of the departments that have like a bigger impact for some of the services that we want to see, or if there are concerns. So as we know, last year there were financial concerns around the Arts Commission. So we asked the Arts Commission to be one of those departments that come in. I've also basically allow any department that doesn't get a hearing, if they want one, I make sure that they have the ability to request to do one as well. So those departments will come in and they give a presentation on their budget, and council members are able to look at that questionnaire to see what that department says that they need. This year, Finance also prepared a document for us that compared what the requests were, what the mayor funded, and what the requests were that were not funded. So as we're listening to that the hearing, and we're listening to the department say, hey, we need extra money for these things, we're able to compare that to what's in their questionnaire. We're able to compare that to what Finance has sent us. So, as all this happening as budget chair, I'm kind of taking notes on some of the things that may stand out to me. My colleagues are all listening for the things that may be really important to them and their constituents. Then we go through budget work sessions. So in those budget work sessions, we all sit together, and this is somewhat of a more new process as well. Historically, the budget chair submitted their substitute budget, and that is what it was, and that was it. We've tried to make this process more collaborative, so through the budget work sessions, we are going through what we like to call the wish list. So each council member can submit a wish list, and that is that council member's priorities. If there are some things that council member would like to see in the budget, they're able to submit that, and that could be, from things that they're passionate about, things that their community has talked about, their constituents have asked for, things that they heard in the budget hearing that were important, and things that they heard from people in the community. So that process has to happen, in essence, before the budget public hearing. And I'll step back. The budget is on 3 readings because it is an ordinance. So the first, we always go through our first reading. Our second reading is our public hearing, where people from the public can come out and talk about what they want to see in the budget and where they want their tax dollars to go. Because it is the second reading of the budget, that's always the first meeting in June. And that aligns so closely with the time that the budget chair is putting out their substitute budget. What we have done is we put the wish list out so that people can say, this is what I want on my wish list, but then we give them the opportunity to update that wish list after the public hearing in case they heard something from the public that really stood out to them and they wanted that to be included. So we're going through those work sessions. We're going through, everyone has the ability to talk about the things that they want in their budget and kind of advocate for it. And then we'll talk about funding sources because it is a zero-sum budget. So if we are adding money somewhere, we have to take money away from somewhere else. And in essence, I have to build a budget that can get 21 votes. So my personal values may be to pull a lot of money from one source, but that doesn't mean that 21 people will agree with that. So I am listening for where my colleagues are saying, there's synergy, that people are saying, hey, I think that we can maybe make some adjustments here or some adjustments there. And then I'm taking all that information, I'm taking what I heard at the community meeting, I'm taking my personal values, I'm taking what I heard from the departments, and I'm taking just what I know from working on this, going through this process and working on it, and I'm putting it all together in a substitute budget, and I'm saying these are the things that I want in this budget. Throughout this whole process, I work very closely with finance. A lot of times we'll find things that may be asked for or things that are already in the budget. Maybe it's already in the mayor's budget. Maybe that entity is already getting something. So, for example, there was a nonprofit that council members were asking funding for, and that was something that I supported giving funding for. But then we realized that nonprofit was getting Barnes funds, a substantial amount of money in Barnes funds that's about to come up. So I didn't put it in the substitute because we don't want to be duplicitous, and they're getting money in another way. And we just don't have the ability to fund every single request. There were about $83 million in requests through the budget wish list. Historically, the council has only changed the mayor's budget by about $1 million or so. That like before we got on council, starting around 2019, I think that shifted some more, and we were starting to make bigger adjustments, especially when it comes to like employee pay. So this budget changed the mayor's budget by a little over $9 million. I believe last year may have been somewhere between $10 to $12 million. But again, I packaged all that together. I put that out so the council members can see it, and then from there we go through the process of voting on it. And I know that you know, but for the sake of anyone who may not know, the mayor proposes a budget, the budget chair proposes a substitute. Council members can propose amendments to the budget chair's substitute. Another person can do a substitute, but their substitute cannot be amended. So we have to vote on that substitute, and it's voted up or down. And if it's voted down, that's knocked out. And then now you're dealing with the chair substitute. And then we vote on each amendment that's moved. And then we vote on the chair substitute as amended. And if that passes, that becomes the budget, which thankfully we've done that for the last 2 years. Historically, the council has always passed their own budget. There's only been once or twice where the mayor's budget prevailed. But if the budget chair's budget is voted down, the mayor's budget automatically goes into effect, and we have to have a balanced budget by June 30th. If we don't pass the budget by June 30th, the mayor's budget goes into effect.
Wow. It's a lot that goes in there, but it looks as if it's also a very short time, because no matter what you want to do, no matter what you want to plan, you really cannot get started until the mayor's budget is out.
Absolutely.
And so, and even in talking to department, what I heard you say is you cannot even start a conversation with department because they don't know what's going to be in the mayor's budget, and until they do that, they cannot come to you and say we're missing this, help us with this and all of that. And so this process is actually an intensive 1.5, 2 months process to be able to come up with a substitute. Wow.
About 6 weeks, because we usually do it by mid-June. Second meeting in June is the third Tuesday of the month, which tends to happen around this time. So it is in essence from May 1 to mid-June, about 6 weeks. But once we get through all those department hearings and we get into the budget work sessions, because you really don't want to craft that budget until you've heard from your colleagues as well. So it's really about a week that I have to digest all of this information and then output a budget.
Wow, I'm surprised you're not sleeping tonight. So appreciate it. So now, and I think you may have alluded to this somewhat, but specifically for this particular budget, how did you determine what went into your substitute?
So a few different things. I do believe that a budget is a moral document. I hands down believe that. We have been in this budget fight, many of us before 2019, many of us have been in this fight for a long time, fighting for wages, fighting for higher employee pay, fighting for protecting public education, fighting for affordable housing. So I see a budget as a moral document. I also have to balance, and I 100% believe like I will never veer away from my morality. So I'm never going to do something that I am not aligned with or that I don't believe in. But I also have to make sure that I am doing something that I can get 21 votes. So again, my personal politics and values may be to allocate funding in a different way. I have to figure out where's their synergy. Where can I get at least 21 people that will agree and say, you know what, that's a good thing. So that's one big part of it. Another part of it is I like to listen to what our community says. So when the public comes out and we do our public hearing, I paid attention to who came out and what people were saying. So I actually moved to the back row so that I can sit really close to the people, because I do think it's important that people know that like we're listening and we're doing everything we can. Obviously, we can't get every single request in, but I do want to try to get in as much as possible and as many of the items that people are asking for. So I keep account of like how many people are coming to speak on things. And it's not just, sheer numbers. Like it's not just because this group had 100 people and this group had 50 people. So it's not just like sheer numbers, but it is like a good indicator of like what we're hearing people say. So in our what we saw was over 120 people came out to the budget hearing, and over 40 people, I believe it was about 42, spoke on the varsity spending plan, which is addressing youth violence. 29 people spoke on affordable housing, 18 people spoke on employee pay, 14 people spoke on the community housing fund, 11 people spoke on the safety plan, 10 people spoke on shift, 9 people spoke on eviction right to counsel. So I was literally like tallying, and then I also kind of group, because sometimes the asks are not the same. Like one person may say $3 million for Barnes, another person may say $2 million for Barnes. I lumped that all into Barnes Fund or affordable housing. So I kind of like pull all those things together, and then I look at what do I have access to do, because if I wanted to, I would change, 20 million or 50 million, like I would, if I could, I would make a lot more changes. But there's a limited amount of money that I have access to. So now I'm trying to see what can I do the most good with the funds that we have. So like $75,000 or $25,000 to the branch to provide emergency food services. $25,000 is not going to have a huge impact on the Metro Department, but that's going to have a huge impact on a small nonprofit that is able to serve our community and feed our community in a way that, like, not everyone knows about government services, but if you're in that community, you're going to know, like, this is a trusted partner in the community. So, like, looking at Oasis Center, it was like $75,000 that I gave to look at, like, youth homelessness. Unhoused youth is not going to know. Let me call my council member so that the council member can call Director Calvin with the Office of Homelessness to see if we can find somewhere for me to live. But that kid is going to know to call Oasis Center. So it's also a balance of like trying to make sure that we're giving dollars to like some of those trusted partners when appropriate, while also balancing that Metro is not a nonprofit funder. So like our tax dollars are not meant to just fund nonprofits. They have to have their own funders, but sometimes we can supplement some of the work that they're doing.
Wow. Whew, okay, so I have to ask this question. One of the things that happened, and you and I have been through this is our second time going through this, and every time that there's an increase in taxes, it's not fun. As a property owner, too, when I saw my rates jump up, anyway. So it's very difficult. So when the mayor's budget came out, there was an increase over the certified tax rate. It's still less than last year, but it's more than the certified tax rate. So in doing your substitute, did you look, because we did have people that says, look, because of the increase in property value, having an increase in taxes is a burden, especially on people with fixed income, older income. So in your budget process, did you look at reducing the tax? And if you did, how did you come to where you were in determining what to not change from the mayor's proposed number?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually looked at reducing the tax rate before you all ever even heard the state of Metro. So because I'm involved in this process so early on, based on things that I already knew, right? Like I already knew that we were coming into this budget with a deficit. I already knew that we had to establish this budget sustainability form. And I say this in a not condescending way at all. I don't want to sound condescending, but I wanted to say this last night. I knew that we were going to have a property tax increase because I understand basic math. So when I ran in 2023 and was asked the question of, do you believe that we're going to have to raise property taxes over the next 4 years? My answer was unequivocally, absolutely. Not because I'm this tax hungry person that's saying let's raise taxes, because I'm a property owner too and I'm a taxpayer too, but because I knew what the numbers were, I knew what our financial situation was. I think this is you and Councilmember Toombs, this is y'all's 6th budget, this is my 7th budget, right? So I was even on it, a term before you all doing this work. So I knew that we were going to have to do this. So once I started looking at the numbers and working with the finance director, I had an idea of about where it was going to be. So saw the mayor's budget come out. So then you start looking at, okay, where can we make reductions? Well, if you look at how much tax we bring in with 1 penny, right? So then I start saying, okay, in order to meaningfully bring down somebody's tax rate, because if I just drop their tax rate by 1 penny, that's not good. That may be $1 a month. Like that's not gonna really change your taxes, but that 1 penny will mean a great reduction in services across the board. So then we start looking at, okay, to get to a meaningful drop in property taxes, that's maybe 30 cents on the tax rate or something like that. But we would reduce so many services. There was a substitute budget that was going to be proposed last night. Just to put it in context, that substitute budget was dropping the tax rate by 16 cents. So if your house was worth about, I think, $550,000, somewhere in there, you're talking about $20 a month, $19.80 or so a month. If your tax bill, if your house is valued at about $423,000, you're talking about $14 a month, right? So for a $400,000 to $500,000 house, you're saving $14 to $20 a month. But it's defunding public schools at $54.5 million. It's pulling $6 million less in funding for our firefighters, which means that that they can't get to houses as quickly if your house is on fire. You're talking about $4 million reduction to the police, which I think is very, I think what has to be said, because a comment was made last night about fear-mongering and things of that nature. I think it has to be said, and we have to go on the record and saying, for years, many of us have talked about common sense alternatives to policing and common sense reductions when we look at, does it make sense to do a small reduction to the police budget? And we're always treated as like extremists when we have those conversations. And Councilmember Welsh couldn't even get an amendment passed to reduce the police budget by $15 million or $87 million, but you have a proposal to reduce it in $4 million. So I welcome my colleagues in continuing those conversations and joining us that have been a part of that conversation for a while. But in essence, you would lose so much services, which is why, and it was mentioned last night, that's why I kept saying the juice isn't worth the squeeze, because you get to the point where you're still paying higher taxes, but you're now receiving less services. So I'm gonna save $8 a month, but now it's gonna take longer for my trash to get picked up. It's gonna take longer for police to come. It's gonna take longer for fire to come. My kids' school won't have new textbooks, all for $8 a month. Like it just doesn't make sense. The other thing is we have to look at, this isn't just what your taxes are for this year. This is for the next 3 years. So we have to make sure that we have enough money coming in to run our government for the next 3 years. There's instability on the federal level. We have to make sure we have that budget sustainability fund so that if something is happening, we have the ability to continue to run our government. We have to make sure that we protect our bond ratings. That sustainability fund has allowed us to save money when it comes to our bond ratings. We have to make sure that there's enough money to pay our employees and our teachers and to provide services. So it is always a tough decision. I grew up lower middle class. I'm a single mom. I do not have a lot of money. This job pays $25,000. So it's not like I'm...
Wow, very well said. And I will echo that. We've been through this many times that many of us, I did look at it too, and you come to a point of, what do you do? I mean, again, it's either you lose services in order to be able to do it, and again, for how much are we talking about? And so, and the other thing that I think is also worth mentioning over and over and over again is that when Metro was not conscious of this decision, when Metro choose not to be mindful of, if you don't have enough money to run government, you get into a deficit, you go into your fund balance. We all knew what happened the first year we came in, where Metro was in a financial mess, and we don't want to ever go back to that. So to all of our constituents, to all the taxpayers out there, I know you did, I'm sure you did, I know many of us did, in looking at can we reduce the taxes, but it was not to the point that for everything that we need to do. So thanks for at least being diligent and putting that so eloquently. So,
can I say one more thing
yes,
too?
ma'am.
In addition to looking at reducing taxes, I also looked at different revenue sources to see if we could bring money in through another way. Like, can we increase the tax on tours? That's something that we hear all the time. Could we look at increasing the hotel motel tax? Like, I looked in every single nook and cranny. And I also think that it's important to say too, we are council members and we're doing the best that we can to support our constituents. The mayor is the mayor, and he's doing the best he can to support the constituents. we have a finance team that this is their
Their
job.
job.
They are the experts on this. So I think that we should never blindly trust anyone. You always have to ask questions. You always have to do your due diligence. But we have experts that are saying this is the best path, right? And then you have these checks and balances of like council members coming in and saying, well, let me just check and see and let me just make sure. So it is all of those things compounded together that says this is the best thing. So we don't blindly trust, you know, and I trust finance. I think they've been very transparent and they've done a really great job. They give me all the information I asked for and I appreciate that. But we don't ever, there's checks and balances for everything. So even though they're saying that this is the path, we're still doing it. Even some of our most conservative council members who are absolutely against an increase and also you also mentioned this. We lowered the tax rate. This is the lowest in Metro's history, but because property values have gone up, that is why people are paying more. So we didn't raise taxes. Technically, we lowered our taxes, but because your home value is more, you are now paying more in taxes. So even our council members that were adamantly against it, they looked for ways to get there, and they were not able to get there either.
They couldn't find it. And I think it's very important to be able to also let everybody understand, because I know as we look talking about other revenues, I think in my first blog of the season I shared that when you look at the growth in all the revenue sources other than property taxes, everything combined was less than 25 million, or maybe it was around 25 million.
Yeah.
And that does not even cover the employee raises. And so when we pay 9.75% in sales tax, 7% goes to the state. We only get 2.75. And so people talk about maybe we should do the wheel tax. You can look at all of that. But what they bring in is very small.
Absolutely.
It's very small. It's not a whole lot. And so you don't want to increase property taxes and then increase wheel tax and then increase, like you cannot do that. And so I think it's very important for people to have a very broad understanding of how all of this works. And so thank you so much. So now to the meat of the thing. Your substitute budget, and you mentioned that it's about 9 million something. Can you walk us through what's in it and what were the specific, and if you can go through what those numbers were, we'll appreciate it.
Thank you. So again, the budget is $3.8 billion, right? So the base of the budget is the mayor's budget because about 90 to 95% of a department's budget is staff. So when we start talking about like making reductions to a department, that's primarily laying people off. So your budget is kind of like the base is there, right? So I think of it almost like a hamburger with the toppings, right? So the bread is there, the meat is there, but we may change out the toppings, but the base of it stays the same, right? So the base of this is still the mayor's budget. So when we talk about like the $45 million for the unified housing strategy, the extra money for like waste services, the extra money for employee wages, all of those things are there. But I just changed out or accented a few things. So the biggest thing was an additional $8.2 million to increase employee wages. So we've changed the way that we looked at compensation. We did a compensation study. It was an extensive study to determine how we were going to pay our employees. The compensation study increased everyone's pay, but then it also has a 2% merit, which we were at a 3% merit over the course of 10 steps. Now we're at a 2% merit over the course of 15 steps. And then you have an across the board on top of that. We used to call it a COLA. Now it's being called an across the board. The civil service recommendation was a 2% across the board. And some of the people are like, oh, you did 1%. Well, it's 1% on top of all those other things that we already had. So civil service did recommend a 2% across the board. The mayor was able to get there with the 1% across the board. I let it be known really early on that one of my top priorities was making sure that we addressed that. And I also just want to take a moment to say that the mayor was very supportive in that. Historically, you have had times where a mayor wants their budget passed because that budget is their priorities. And the council is coming in with different priorities. So in the past, you've had mayors to pick off council members because they want their budget to be passed. So they are now, lobbying those council members to vote against the substitute so that they can vote for the mayor's budget. And I'm very thankful in the last 2 years that we've done this budget process, Mayor Okama has not done that, and he's been very supportive. So when I told him that my number one priority was paying employees, not only was he 100% in support, he also was helping me find a pathway there. Because initially we thought it was going to be about $10 million to do it, and he was able to say, like, hey, actually we looked into it, you only need the 8.2. So that was even, that helped me to get there. And I think that's important to name, because people will say, well, why didn't he just do it in his budget? Well, he has a whole list of priorities that he has to also get through. And also, the closer that we get to the budget process, the better that numbers firm up. So I'm able to see some actuals a little bit, in more real time than in April, because I'm doing it in June and he's doing it in April, So that was a big thing, getting that additional 1% for the employees. We did $250,000 to support maternal health through the health department's Strong Babies initiative. Last week, Tennessee made the news for being #1 in the country for maternal mortality rates from 2018 to 2022. Wow. So 166 pregnancy-related deaths in those 5 years. This budget provides funding for 10 additional doulas through the Strong Babies program. $200,000 to expand food assistance programming through social services, some more food pop-ups, taking food to people in the community, home and community-based service customers, and also small home repairs for anyone in need. Of that $200,000, $25,000 is earmarked to the branch. They provide emergency food programming. They go out to people in the community who may not be able to come to them. They also go out and give food. $150,000 for NAZA, which is our after-school program. So that's through the public library. And they have a pilot program with justice-involved youth and working through the alternative learning centers. Alternative learning centers are if a child has been expelled from school. So if a child maybe brought a gun to school or something like that, and they're expelled from their school zone, but they still need to be educated. So a lot of times they'll get sent to this alternative learning center. So NAZA has a pilot program with them. And it also supports camps for students, for families from a lower socioeconomic status. $100,000 to explore a public-private housing partnership. We heard from a lot of people in the community. We've been hearing from years of people want us to do different things on how we do affordable housing here in Nashville. And now there is the option to use IDB funds for affordable housing, but there are different proposals. So you have one community group saying this is the way to do it. You have another community group saying this is the way to do it. You have affordable housing experts saying this is the way to do it. So this $100,000 is actually working with the entity that has set up these partnerships across the country. So they're the experts in doing it, and they'll be able to help us determine how we can do this in Tennessee with the restrictions that we have in Tennessee, with the preemptions that we have in Tennessee. Had a great meeting with the administration and planning and all the head honchos about how we move forward with this partnership, and they're on board with moving forward. So this $100,000 is for that consultant. I know sometimes people say another consultant or another study. That's not what this is. This is literally the expert in setting it up, helping us to get to the place of what is the best way for us to set this up. $88,000 was appropriated to the Parks Department to support Shelby Golf Course employees. So one of the requests was for Shelby Golf Course to get another 3 or 4 employees to get their golf course fully staffed, because right now they're not fully staffed, so they're only operating at like reduced hours. So we were able to add FTEs, and I didn't talk about this last night. We were able to add FTEs without funding them. So basically, we allowed them to create new positions. We didn't do the funding for the positions, so they can use some of their salary savings from unfilled positions to fill those positions if that is their priority to fill. But those positions will need about $88,000 in supplies to be able to run and operate. So I was able to give them that $88,000. $75,000 to support the court-appointed special advocates through juvenile court, which provides advocacy services for children and youth in foster care across Davidson County, which would increase their capacity by 11%, allowing them to serve up to 400 children annually, which represents about 56% of the estimated 715 children in foster care. $75,000 for the Oasis Center's emergency youth shelters through the Office of Homeless Services, $60,000 to support the museum study that we've been talking about for years. To explore, Nashville's rich history and just such a beautiful history with just the civil rights movement and all the things that we've done here in our city. So we needed that $60,000 to really do that study to determine what this would look like to get a history museum here. $25,000 for the Sister Cities program, and that'll be used to either fully or partially fund travel scholarships for students facing financial or other barriers to travel, to make sure that all students, regardless of their background or socioeconomic status, can access global learning. So those were the things that were actually funded. But then there were also things that were done but not funded. So we also got another position for MAC for animal control, that they created a position, but it wasn't funded, so health can use their salary savings to fund it. We heard a lot about a community-driven safety plan.
Yes.
Different people have a different vision for that. So MHRC started this work under Melody Fowler Green when she was over the MHRC. There were a series of community meetings about what a community-driven safety plan would look like. And I say community-driven, right? Because the community needs to be the needs to be the ones that are like driving this. But also community is a huge part of the voice, but there are also like multiple entities that need to be a part of that conversation. So I was able to work with the health department, which I'm very thankful for Dr. Areola and his leadership. Dr. Areola was here in Metro, I believe, like back in 2015. And the things that he was talking about then, like violence being a public health crisis, the things that he was talking about in 2015, people are just now catching up to in 2025 and 2024. So he's very progressive in his thoughts of how we address violence, how we incorporate community, and making sure that these processes are community-led solutions. So he already had funding for a community safety plan. They were already in the process of working on it. What I loved about Dr. Areola and his leadership, he didn't say, this is what we're going to do, and then I'm going to present this to the community. He's saying, this is a rough outline of I believe that it'll look good if we bring the community groups in and we do this, but we let the community groups lead the process. But he didn't want to really prescribe it because he wants the community groups to be the ones to really lead that. So I had a meeting with Dr. Areola, with a member from the community, from Andrew Crinks from the National People's Budget Coalition. We were able to have a meeting together to talk about what this would look like with health doing this. So again, we didn't have to allocate any additional funding for it, but we were able to really affirm and ensure that this will be a community-led process, not a government-led process. So this isn't a process being led by the police or the sheriff's department or the mayor or any of these like government entities. This is really the people coming to the table. And Dr. Areola really affirmed that like the community will have access to leading this. Also, funding flexibility for the Office of Youth Safety. I've said this so many times, but no matter how many times I say it, people hear what they want to hear. SMC has not gotten a dime of city money. This is similar to if Turk or AMAC advocated for funding for the Office of New Americans, right? It's similar, right? It's not any money going to an organization. This is creating the Office of Youth Safety. So they were funded last year $1 million. That was $750,000 in the mayor's office for the director and for the positions, and then $250,000 through parks for programming for youth. So because we started that process, the process took about a year, almost a year, to get everything up and running and to get our director hired. So that means that $750,000 last year, they didn't spend hardly any of that. But because it was in an administrative account, we were able to roll that over. So they still have the full $1 million for this upcoming year that's in the budget, because Office of Youth Safety is a department now, like any other department. So they still have their funding. But they have access to that, which should be about $700,000, if not more, not a little bit more. But they'll have access to that funding for this year. Also, one of the things that we heard was like translation services for the Nashville Fire Department. It's like $5,000. So that was something that I had on my list, which finance said that fire would be able to absorb that. Beat of Life was one about individuals in the county jail having access to like songwriters and just kind of more of a restorative program, which I talked to Sheriff Hall. He was able to absorb that. And there were some other things too. Like there were other, sometimes people say, why didn't this make it or why didn't that make it? I vetted just about every single thing in there. And if it's not in there, it's a reason, that it wasn't in there. Either Metro is already doing it, either it's already funded in the mayor's budget, either it's something that we can't do by charter. Like there's a reason. Our Place Nashville was one of the ones, the housing for individuals with disabilities. That was one that I wanted to get funding for. But then I found out that I believe they've gotten, it was $500,000 over the last 18 months from Metro. So, Bloom was one that, was looking at giving them funding, but they're getting $750,000 in Barnes Fund that will be coming up. So it's like this is what I'm looking at. Like, we have to be very thoughtful with our tax dollars. Rebuild Nashville was one that I wanted to give money to, but in the Unified Housing Strategy, there's over $1 million for anti-displacement initiatives, and they fund Rebuild Nashville. So, like, I'm looking at, like, not duplicating services. So we go through and we're vetting all of these, and then as it comes out, okay, well, this one is one. Eviction right to counsel is one that I definitely wanted to give more funding to. There were some discrepancies about the amount of funding that they needed, which is why we weren't able to increase the funding, because they got, $2.2 million with the ARP funding. But that is something that we want to continue to support. So that's one thing that's also really important to me. Like, I don't want anyone to feel like if my item didn't make it, that means she doesn't support it. Absolutely not. There's so many community requests and community demands and council member requests, and I'm literally trying to honor every single last one of them. I know Shift had some demands as well that they wanted to have included in the budget, that I also looked at all of those, and like, zero fare transit was something that that we're not doing, but we are doing the free transit for individuals from a lower socioeconomic status. So, like, looking through all of these, like, finance has already created the dashboard because they had already been working with Councilmember Benedict from, I believe, either last year, I believe is when that conversation started, but creating a transparency dashboard so we can see how our finances are being spent. So literally every proposal that came across my desk, I looked at every single thing to determine what I could include, and if I could include it without increasing the money. Because that $100,000 for that consultant, that came out of the $500,000 for underwriting services in the Unified Housing Strategy. So I didn't have to give an extra $100,000, but I was able to work with that director to earmark that $100,000 for this, and she was in agreement with that. So a lot of what I'm doing too is trying to get as much good out of this, stretching it. Yeah, we did $60,000 for Tennessee Justice Center to help with individuals in the Napier community that may have lost health care and that need to appeal their loss to health care. So again, but we didn't add extra money for that. That's just earmarking $60,000 from health's budget to make sure that it goes there.
Wow. And the thing about it is, which is what I think a lot of people may not understand, is that you're not just looking at things in isolation. You're not just looking at wish lists. You're not just looking at what the community is saying. You're talking to finance. You're looking at where things are being, what is being funded, so it's a very involved process, and thank you so much for your service.
It is.
Any comments, question on Facebook so far?
You have 2 thank yous. Thanks for your service and work, ladies, from Tequila M. Johnson, and then ditto to what Tequila M. Johnson said from Latanya Channel.
Oh, wow.
Thank
you ladies for watching.
I
appreciate it. Thanks for the support. I think it's I know that we passed it yesterday, but I know that the lingering question, I know that people don't understand what this whole process entails, and I think just explaining it and bringing people along. I've always said that people don't trust government because they don't understand what's going on, or they don't know what's going on, and we have it all in our head, and we have to take a moment to just walk people through it. And somebody listen to all that you're saying. I mean, I know some of this, but I don't even know all of it, right? And so, but listen to how all of that works will help somebody understand the process a whole lot better. And so thank you for your service and all that you've done.
I
so
agree with that, Counselor. Can I say one thing too?
Yes.
I didn't trust government either. That's why I got in government, right? Like, I was the biggest. I was like, I hate politics. Like, I don't trust it. I loved my predecessor, Councilmember Karen Johnson. She was council member at the time. I loved those Southeast council members. I was coming to all these council meetings. I was listening to Bob Mendez. I was listening to Fabian Bednay, and I trusted them as individuals, but I didn't trust the system, and I didn't trust that the body was doing what I thought was in my best interest and my community's best interest, and like, it wasn't always morally aligned with what I wanted to see. So I got into this because I didn't trust what was happening, and I felt that there was no better person to vote my values than me. So I totally understand people like not trusting, because it is like, we do so much. Like, if you think about, like, we're taking an hour to kind of talk about this, which is great, but it's hard to summarize a year's worth of work, or like, you know, if I've spent 50 hours on the budget, it's hard to explain all those things. And it's like, I always want to be accountable to the people. I always want to be very transparent. So like, I never mind somebody's asking me questions like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? I always try to explain, but sometimes it may be an hour, I'm summarizing an hour meeting as to why I couldn't do this thing, and I'm summarizing it in 30 seconds, and people are like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And it's like, I'm not saying just blindly trust me, because we have to be accountable to our constituents, to our supporters. We all have to be accountable to each other. We have to be in community with each other, and we have to work together to get these things across the finish line. But it is kind of hard to sometimes just stop and slow down and say, these are all the things that we've done. So that's why I like those budget work sessions, because people are able to watch and they're able to kind of like pull the veil back and see how we got to the place that we got to.
Yeah. We look, the onus is on us to, we need the trust of our constituents.
Absolutely.
And that's what us explaining and trying to say all of this. I love these budget conversations. I'm so proud that, I mean, the last week we had 1,163 opens on the newsletter when I send it out. I have over 60% open rates now. People are reading it. People are eager to know, and people always respond to me and say, thank you for explaining this. Because we have access to a lot of information, and some of these things are going so far. Yeah. Even some of our colleagues, like, I listen sometimes when people say stuff, and I'm like, that's not how that works. Like, no, and you're thinking, no, you know, it doesn't work like that. And so imagine if, and I can say that this is my second term, right? I've learned some things, I've grown, I've watched, I've asked. Not everybody is at there, and everybody will get there. So that's why talking about this and explaining and educating, I think, is good for all of us. And so I do appreciate your service. So this is your second year as budget chair. What is different between the 2 years? I'm interested in knowing. I kind of have a feeling of how I see the two unfold, and I kind of feel I know which one was your better year. I don't know if that's true or not, but I want to hear from you. Like, you were budget chair the first time with a new mayor, but there was no tax increase. But it was a tough budget. Yeah. And then you were budget chair in a year that there is a tax increase, which is a different conversation entirely, and different things to walk through. So just wanted to know, what is your experience? Which one? Can I ask you which one is your preference? Do you
you
like
probably think it was last year.
I thought it was last year.
It was actually this year.
Interesting.
And I'll tell you why. And I will also say, let me just say that I'm not complaining, but I got the short end of the stick both years, because whoever gets the budget next year will get to benefit off of the work that I did this year. I'm taking the hit for the year of the property tax increase, but the next person will have the revenue to build a better budget without having to take the heat for being the one with the property tax increase. So I had to do a budget the day before payday when we didn't have any money and still tried to make it stretch. And then I had to do a budget in the year, because you have to balance. Like, I can't just, you know, spend willy-nilly and say, oh, we're giving money to all these things. And then people are like, but my taxes are going up. And someone asked me, you know, well, you're doing all of this. This could have been a reduction in tax. This is about a penny in property tax. So even all the things that I changed will only save you $1 a month, you know, something like that. So the process was different. Last year, it was extremely challenging. There were, you know, I was building trust with finance. The administration and I worked great together. I'm thankful for Director Crumbo. Aaron Pratt was just a rock star both years. This year, it was a lot different with Director Reed. Just the approaches were different, and I think that there were some lessons we learned last year.
And it's your second year too.
It's my second year, so there were things that I know better.
Yeah.
I think that there were some lessons that we learned from last year that we were able to incorporate this year. So all of those things, but I also think that this year I didn't have anything to prove. So Council Lady Toombs reminded me of something that it is not normal for a budget to pass unanimously. People tend to vote against the budget. Council Lady Toombs and I both had unanimous budgets. She had a 39 unanimous budget because I think one person was absent. Last year I had a 40-person unanimous budget. That's not normal. You know, there are things that people will say about you. You know, one of our former colleagues let me in on something that, you know, last term some of our colleagues referred to me as a loudmouth little black girl or something like that.
What?
This loudmouth little girl was able to pass a $3.28 billion budget unanimously.
Oh, wow.
We won't even go there. It's just,
Okay,
we'll keep it moving.
But
the point is, and I don't want to harp on that, but it's more so the point is, there were things that happened the previous year, being on budget committee, not being on budget committee, all the culmination of all these things, right? And being put on budget committee and being placed as the budget chair when there are people that think that you can't do it, right? I'm a little girl from Memphis, a girl from Memphis. I was a school teacher. I don't have a CPA. I don't have a background in finance. And there were people that thought that I couldn't do it. There were so many people that thought that I could do it, but there were still people that thought that I couldn't do it. And I was able to do it, and I was able to live my values, and I was able to stand up for the things that I believe in and that I value, and trying to make the most equitable budget that I could bring forward last year. So last year, I proved myself, right? This year, I have nothing to prove to anybody. I have nothing to prove to anybody. It is just, and I'm not an ego-driven person. I'm the person of, I just want to do the work, and I just want to get as much good done as possible. So this year, you know, I had people asking me, like, are you going for a unanimous budget again? All I need is 21 votes to pass. I don't care how I get it. I don't care if I'm dragging vote 21 across the finish line.
It's a tax year too, though. I mean, anytime you have a tax increase, you know, not everybody will agree to a tax increase. A unanimous will be very difficult to achieve in a tax. In a year you're increasing taxes. Yeah. And so the fact that you were able to get as much as you get in a tax increase years, especially when we know that property value went up, and we know that a lot of people are saying, don't increase my taxes. Yeah. The fact that you were able to get as many votes as you got, I think it's a testament to all the work that went in. It's a testament to everybody else looked and couldn't find it. It's a testament to you putting in everything else. So I say kudos to you.
I appreciate that. And also, our colleagues trust my leadership. You know, I've heard that time and time again, even people that are on the other side for me politically, like I've heard that so many times, that they trust my leadership because I do try to be as transparent as possible. I'm very honest as possible. I'm running very efficient meetings. I'm looking at ways to save. Like even in the year, within the last year, I started 3 different working groups, with you leading a procurement working group, Council Lady Toombs leading a working group looking at employees to see if we can save any money through making sure that we're right sizing our departments. Council Lady Allen leading a working group looking at how we fund nonprofits. I am really looking for government efficiency, right? Like even though like people will label me, I proudly label myself as someone that I believe is progressive. You know, I think that that's a spectrum, and different people will think different things, but I'll consider myself a more progressive person. But I'm still looking for government efficiencies, and I'm still looking to how we best stretch our tax dollar, and how can we give the best services, the most equitable services, the most moral services, and helping those that need the help the most, while still keeping the tax rate as low as we can, because we do know that raised taxes can be a financial barrier for people. So trying to like balance those things, it is hard. And I think that I've been as transparent as I can be with my colleagues, and that has garnered, you know, support. And again, I thank Vice Mayor Henderson for giving me the opportunity to do what most people are never able to do once. She gave me the opportunity to do it twice. I'm thankful to the mayor for giving us a good budget to start with, to the finance team for working so diligently. I love that. I know, you know, sometimes people are like, well, I don't trust this, I don't trust that. But what I love is with that finance team, they don't try to morally regulate what I want to do in the budget. So they don't say, well, I don't think you should do that. If I say I want this, they're like, okay, let's see how we can make it happen. And they're going out of their way to try to make sure that the things that I want to help me get a pathway there. And we were able to do all these things without reducing services, and without cutting the departments, without laying anybody off, and without losing any of the services that we need.
I say amen and amen and amen. Any thoughts? Okay, all right. Well, thank you, Chair Porterfield. It's been an amazing, I think, like you rightly said, your leadership shone through. People trusting the transparency, someone like myself saying I'm going to follow the chair because I do believe in what the chair is doing, and I see how hard you really work for this, and I think that went through. I'm grateful for the community safety plan. And I'm going to be talking to Dr. Ariola too. I do want somebody from the Immigrant Caucus to be a part of that conversation when it's already taking place, because it's very critical that we get that done. And I love the idea of community driven. I think that's going to be critical. Thank you. Do you have any last thing, any question I didn't ask you that you wanted to say? Any thoughts you want to share? Because this is your last budget conversation.
Maybe we'll see what happens. You never know. We'll see
Hey,
what
you
happens.
never know. You never know.
I would just,
You never know.
Again, just thankful to everyone that was supportive. Thankful for everybody that came out, that advocated protecting public schools last night. We had a lot of people from like MNEA. We had SEIU. We had a lot of groups that came out. We had representatives last night from the Equity Alliance instead of Nashville and Turk. We had lots of partners that come out. We had people from SMC out last night. We had unions out last night. So we had lots of people out last night, some of which were supporting the budget, some of which were just watching the process unfold. But I'm thankful that we're able to do this in a way that we're able to do government in front of people, and people are able to see what we're doing. Thankful for the people that came out to support, and also I'm very thankful to my daughter who is with us in the audience right now. But every minute that we work on this is time that we're away from our family. So being up to 3 o'clock in the morning working on this, it was one night I was here till 3 a.m. working on budget stuff, and I had a meeting the next morning at 8 a.m. and I was just like, I should just put my head down and sleep here and just get up next morning and do it. But that's time away, from the family. And it's not a complaint by any means. I'm thankful to be able to do it, but I'm thankful that my daughter shows me grace and allows me to participate in this and to work to make a better Nashville for her and for everyone else.
Oh, wow. I don't think I can top that. Well, thank you, everyone. This is the last budget conversation of this budget season. I've enjoyed doing the budget conversation for the last 6 years. It's allowed me to be able to listen to folks. It's allowed me to help inform my budget wish list. It's allowed me to be able to educate myself, to educate the public, and hopefully to be able to better serve you. This is not an easy decision. Walking through the budget is not easy, but everybody's doing the best that we can. We are taxpayers. I wish we didn't have to increase the taxes so I wouldn't have to pay so much, but we have to look at everything holistically. We have to look at losing money from the state, from the federal government. How do we make sure we're not laying people off? How do we make sure that we're not cutting services? And people have to understand that, again, like I said last night, I don't want to say $15 and then have a problem, a fire at my house, and the fire department cannot get there. As a mother, I don't want to say $15 or $20, and then the value of my schools, the schools that we have are going down. Education is our equalizer. If we cannot put money there, then what are we doing? And so this is where we find ourselves, and in moments like this is where leaders stand up. Leaders will not politicize what needs to be done. Leader will not take the easy way out. Leaders are meant to stand up and make the tough decision, and budget chair did that, and council did that. It wasn't easy, but I thank you for your service. Thank everyone. Again, a comment, okay?
Luis Durrell said thank you so much, Luis from Metro Water, and they've done a great job. Little girl from Memphis, Luis from Metro Water.
Little girl, I love that. Thank you, Luis from Metro Water.
Latanya Channel said loudmouth little black girls get things done historically.
Ooh.
Yes, ma'am. What is the quote? Well-behaved women often
never make history.
Yeah, never make history.
Never make history.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone. This is on Facebook Live, but it's also going to be on YouTube for those that wants to watch you on the Metro channel. It's also going to be turned into my blog, and for those that subscribe to my newsletter, you will also be getting this as a newsletter. So thank you all so much. We're still here. Budget season is over. She's still budget chair for a couple more months and maybe longer. But we're still both elected officials for the next 2 years, and we're to continue to serve you. Any question, any thoughts, any things that you have, send it our way, and we'll continue to do our best. Again, thank you all so very much, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks, Chinai. Why are you not on camera?
I don't want to be.
Yeah.